Thank you for inviting me, first of all. So we're actually just around the corner here in Brussels. Super easy, super convenient. And it's also where it started for us, for CitizenLab. So we help local governments connect to their citizens and make it easy for them to participate. And actually it started for us with the idea of us citizens who want to connect with our city government here in Brussels. But it was not easy to do so. And that's why we were thinking of how can we leverage technology, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So that's a bit my personal story. It's right now 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years, that we got started on CitizenLab. So as I said, I'm from Brussels myself. I feel very connected to the city, to Brussels. I had many ideas on how I could improve Brussels, and the ones who live in Brussels, they know that there are a lot of problems here in Brussels. And from there we got started on CitizenLab. Is there a problem? Okay, cool. It's not working though. And yeah, I was not alone. I was definitely not alone. If you just look at the numbers, and that was Dirk also talking about, more and more citizens, they distrust the government. They don't have the trust anymore in the government. This is a survey coming from Youthful Cities, so it's a survey done all over Europe in all the European cities. And there are some interesting numbers, I think, in there. So we have 83% of the citizens who say, all right, today I don't feel that my voice is heard by my local government. Although you see that a majority of them does or do want to participate in their local government. But what is then the reason why people don't do so? Well, I think one part is definitely that today the options, the alternatives that you have, or the options to have a say in your local decision making, they are pretty limited. And I speak again for myself, for especially also younger people, millennials, who want to participate in their local government but don't feel like going to a town hall meeting at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening after work. You want to make it easy accessible and not time consuming to participate. Next to that you have of course the traditional mechanisms like surveys, for instance, but they're not transparent at all, not collaborative. And lastly, all right, social media is definitely also a tool to get your voice heard, but who is going to guarantee that your government is ever going to listen to what you're shouting on social media? So that was for us the question that I raised first was, all right, how does it need to look like? If we use technology, how does it need to be? And I think for sure technology needs to be easy, accessible in the way that everybody can use it. It needs to be simple to use for young, old, whatever, every demographic group. Secondly, it needs to be collaborative. There needs to be cross-pollination. People need to be able to go into a discussion with each other. And lastly, and that is, I think, an important thing that where we, in DNA of CitizenLab, it needs to be structured and manageable for the city, because feedback is a crucial element of citizen participation. Getting feedback from your city government, that they make sure that you're effectively heard, and that's why we actively or proactively work together with governments, make sure that for them it's also an improvement and that they don't consider it an extra burden to do digital participation. So that's one of the things that we definitely focus on making it very manageable and structured for the city as well. So what is CitizenLab? CitizenLab is an online platform on which citizens can co-create the city. So citizens, which I will show later, they can post ideas, they can go into discussion with each other, and then they will vote. I have a video, but I will skip that one, I guess. So how does it work? So here you see, you post your idea as a citizen. You can comment, enter into a discussion, and then you communicate your preferences by voting for or against certain proposals. You can also see that the applications here are totally different. We think it's important that it's the city government that owns the communication, that it's clear that they are the owner, not a third party. That's why it also has the visual identity, etc. of the city. so that you have the feeling as a citizen, all right, I'm communicating directly to the government, which is also the case. For municipalities, on the other hand, they have the option to add a lot of information on projects that are currently going on in the city, so they can, for instance, when there's a mobility plan, that they can document things, that they can inform people about all the things that are currently going on in the city. As I said, feedback is a crucial dimension. That's something we stress on. They can configure the whole decision-making process and make sure that actually the timeline of such a project is clear towards the citizens, so that the city knows, all right, that's when I can expect some feedback from my city. And lastly, we want to have an efficient workflow for them to get insights out of the ideas. So what are then the benefits? It's definitely you increase your engagement by tenfold. You can reach up to 10% of your citizens. You can include more of the youngsters who are not always heard these days. And thirdly, again, that's going back to more of the efficiency. So as said earlier on, today we work with about 30 cities here in Belgium, but also in the Netherlands. We have 8,000 proposals from citizens, and in the end we have more than 50,000 citizens engaged. And here you have a little overview of all the cities we work with. So we started out actually in Hasselt, the city of Hasselt. Also then with other mid-sized Belgian cities like Sint-Niklaas, Oostende, Vilvoorde, the city of Liège, the city of Luik in Wallonia, and then Mons. And now we also move towards the Netherlands and towards Denmark. So I will explain a bit, like one case in particular. The first project that we did was with the city of Hasselt. So in the city of Hasselt, we actually worked with them on, it's called the Kapermolenpark, which is the biggest park in Hasselt. And their citizens, they could submit their proposals for about 3-4 months on how the park would look like. So in 2017, this year, they are going to reconstruct the park. And in early 2016, last year, the citizens, they could post their proposals. What was done was actually a very phased approach. So initially, citizens, they come up with any idea in a free format. Then clusters were formed, priorities were formed. It's also important to know that this always goes hand in hand with offline meeting. It's definitely not, and that's also like we CitizenLab, we don't believe that it's a digital only approach. I think they go hand in hand and are very complementary. And then out of these priorities, they were then taken into account to construct the urban plan or the park plan. Some of the ideas that came out, for instance, was the integration of, I don't know whether someone is from Hasselt here? No? The integration of the river called the Demer, I think it is, inside the park, which was running next to the park. A lot of people were asking for that. That has been listened to, and that is now part of the plan. Another thing was that a lot of citizens actually said, hey, I want to go to the park, and also when it's a sunny day like today, go work outside. So we want to have public Wi-Fi, we want to have some modular benches on which it's more comfortable to work on. So these things have now been incorporated in the plans for the park. So, and by the way, so the city of Hasselt, this was one project, but the way that we work is that the city, we want to involve as many departments as possible to also have a lot of, actually in the end, to have all the projects that are going on in the city, to have them open, and so that citizens can participate in the projects that are most relevant to them. So be it projects that are close to them, in their neighborhood, projects that are in their fields of interest. Another one is the city of Liège. That's one that we started, I think, about 2 months ago. And although it's not finished, so I cannot talk about the impact yet, but what we've learned from that is there they do something like reinvent Liège, reinvent the city, which is way more open. I thought it was interesting. I took it here with us because they collected in 2 months' time 1,000 proposals from the citizens, and to us it showed like it's more of a bottom-up approach. You can post about anything, and that you have quite some more ideas coming from citizens that way. But of course, it's also a huge city. So I want to share 3 key learnings on digital participation to finish. The first one is that we start with this projects approach where you have top-down the city having a specific project going on. Citizens can participate within the project, like the Kampermolenpark, for instance, that I was showing in Hasselt. But we also learned that it's crucial that there is always a bottom-up side next to the top-down side, so that you always give power to the citizens to actually also put things on the agenda, to come up with proposals, to talk about initiatives they have, in order to have the 10% engagement that I was talking about earlier on, in order to have that, to have a broader scope. Secondly, which is super important for us, is again the feedback, that the city provides feedback, and that's always striking a balance, of course, because you can do something totally bottom up, that it's not going to be manageable in the end, that the city is not going to be able to provide feedback, and then people are not going to come back because they don't feel that they're heard. So that's definitely not the goal. We need to make sure that it's manageable, that they are heard. Here you see like a short piece of a timeline on our platform, how it looks like, so you know, till then I can vote, till then I can post my proposals, then there is a neighborhood meeting, etc. And then the last one is that we want to also convince, and it's more from the other side, not the citizen side, but the administrative side, let's say. We want to also make a clear case for digital participation not being a burden, not being an administrative burden, that it's not something that is extra, but that it can actually also help the administration, the public administrations, achieve some efficiencies, that they get more insights, that they can hear more people, and that the whole workflow, which is very manual today, that there is also the possibility to get some better, smarter workflows in there. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear any questions from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm sure some people have some questions about how this works in practice. Yeah, one moment.
Hi, I was just wondering if you have an idea on how it can keep working efficiently depending on the scale it goes on. Like, is it more efficient on a smaller scale, or does the efficiency stay the same if you do this, like for instance on a national level, or have you any tests on that?
Well, we have worked with the Flemish government and the Walloon government on Burgerkabinet, Cabinet Citoyen, like a citizen cabinet. But we definitely prefer working with local governments, municipalities, cities, because of having an impact. I think, when it's more about policies, and it's also more like, again, DNA of our organization, but we have the vision, or the vision that on a local level, like going from an idea to actual implementation can take, like the park, 6 months. And that's what keeps people very warm, because they see their direct impact. Okay, I had this idea, this has been incorporated. Whereas when you're talking about policies, you're talking about multiple years. There are I'm pretty sure that also there you have great tools and great opportunities. But for us, it's about being action-oriented. And that's why we focus on staying on municipal level, staying on city level, because we believe that there is where the action is actually happening.
Okay, I think this is an interesting point to take up later this afternoon with some MPs working at a higher level, how to keep the people warm. You have a question?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I understand this platform is not open source, it's not free. How do municipalities and city councils react to the fact that you mentioned before that the communication is owned by city council, but it's actually on your server, and the data is, we've been aware about the problems and dangers of data leaks or data control and monitoring. How do you deal with data?
So data ownership is totally on their side. But talking about, so that they have at any time access to get all the data out of the software. So that's one thing. Secondly, on the open source, I think we're also not only a software provider, and also we very honestly, we might consider going open source in the future, but we feel that today we're 1.5 years old. We don't feel that we're ready yet for it. we also need to have a clear strategy, because I think I would love to have a chat about it later on, but I think once you go open source, you need to know very clear why, and also how it's going to impact the future of your organization. But also next to that, we don't consider ourselves merely a software provider. We don't install just a solution, here is a software, and now get started. We help the cities and the governments also on keeping clear track on how to actually achieve results from it, how to do a bit of change management inside the organization, how to get all the departments working with the tool. We consider actually the whole software a bit of an iceberg in that sense. What you have for the citizens is the tip of the iceberg, and it should stay a tip because it needs to be simple, it shouldn't be complex. But then underneath, it requires quite some, I think, change management to get people working with the tool, getting their participation platforms, participation projects on there. So that's why we're also a bit of a service company in that way.
Okay, thank you. Another question here, please.
Yeah, thank you. How do you deal with, in fact, you delegate power from politicians to their citizens? How do you manage it? Because I guess most politicians, they're not really eager to do that. So how do you, is it just a consultancy, or is it really like what comes out and they have to accept it? Or I guess these practical things arrive.
Yeah, good question. What we actually learned there is, and that was quite surprising because at the beginning we didn't really succeed at doing this bottom-up part, because we thought there was always this, finding this balance between the interests of the citizens. They don't want to have any restrictions, whereas governments, they want to have clear processes, or they don't want to have clear processes, they want to have their projects. Well, there, I think how to reconcile the two interests was for us talking to the city and showing that there can be a process also behind bottom-up. So to give you an example, the city of Vilvoorde here in Flemish Brabant, they are doing also some more bottom-up participation where citizens can share all their ideas about the city, and that on every quarterly council meeting, the 10 most supported ideas get on the council, and in that way that you can come up with anything. So I think for me it's more showing cities that look to each other a lot, and showing how other cities are doing it, sharing best practices, and how to find strike a balance between getting some structure, making it manageable, and the same on the other hand, having the interests of the citizens kept in mind.
Okay, I see 1, 2, 3 hands. We will take these 3 questions and then, please.
So you say that you could reach 10% of the population in the cities, and I would like to know which difficulties you have encountered when reaching the population.
Mm-hmm. The dependency on the city, mainly. So like the city of Liège, where you have 1,000 proposals, well, it's also because it's a big city with a communication team behind it. But when you're talking about the much smaller municipalities who are just active on Facebook, we see that we notice that it's much more difficult, and we are thinking of how can we also make sure that you're not totally dependent on the communications team of the city to make it a success. So I guess that would be my answer, that you have still dependency on the communications from the government, from the city and the municipalities.
Okay, we had one question in the back.
Yeah, thank you. The tool seems specifically designed for local governments or cities, but I was wondering, could it also be used in large organizations, companies, like for internal participatory decision making, for instance? It
could be, but it's a decision from our side that we don't want to do that, because we also want to go deeper into the interactions between citizens and local councils, and they are pretty specific. Then we're talking about local council meetings like the gemeenteraden and the city council meeting, these things, how to get feedback from there on the platform, how to, there are quite some specific things actually that once you want to go the next step, that it's not applicable anymore for just any organization. Yeah.
It's a digital tool. Do you see that to make sure that all citizens can have access and can use it, that cities also make efforts to build digital skills with the citizens?
Yeah, yeah. Again, depends on the city, but we see again Vilvoorde did some trainings on how to use the platform for citizens, where citizens could come to the town hall, learn how to use the platform. With the Flemish government, with the Burgerkabinet, we put in Muntpunt here in the public library here. They've put some less about trainings, but offline, online. They put some kind of how do you say it? Like a kind of cabinets with tablets and computers inside, where people also from the library would help the citizens on having their ideas online. So I do think that cities, that there is the awareness about the right. We want to have everyone involved, which is very good, of course. Yeah.
Okay, I have from Slido, so from another country, a question. How, if a city wants to get involved with you, how does it work? You just send you an email?
Yeah, I think my email address is on there, so it's as easy as that, and then we could talk. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks for your contribution.